Today's lesson is Travel Safety 101, 6 essential tips for staying safe abroad. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I am Mike.
And today we're talking about travel safety. You know, it's an introductory kind of lesson that you might see in university. So we have Travel Safety 101, a basic level course. And it's all about 6 essential tips for staying safe abroad. If something's essential, of course, it's very, very important. And of course, you might be traveling this holiday season because Christmas is almost here, New Year, Chinese New Year, etc. Or maybe you have some annual leave that you'd like to use up. So you're going to be traveling, but you want to be safe because sometimes the world is not as safe as it is here in Taiwan. So we've got some tips for you, some special information on how to stay safe.
Of course, these are good general tips depending on what country you're going to. You might also want to do a bit more sort of local-based research about the situation in that country because, of course, some countries can go through political upheaval or they have periods where there might be more crime. So, you can use these as good general common sense tips. But yes, if you're going to certain places that are in sort of global hotspots or certainly have areas of the country where they might have a bit more local trouble, then you do need to check those situations very specifically at the time. So let's look at some of our basic, good, broad, generally sensible travel safety tips in the first part of our article. Travel Safety 101, 6 essential tips for staying safe abroad. Traveling abroad is both exciting and educational. However, for Taiwanese vacationers used to safe cities with little crime, foreign adventures can also present unexpectedly risky situations. With this in mind, here are some tips for a safe, enjoyable trip.
大家好，标题中看到形容词 essential， 它的意思是极其重要的或是必不可少的。例如 It is essential to get enough sleep to maintain good health. 充足的睡眠对维持健康至关重要。或者 When you are working in a laboratory, it is essential to follow the safety rules. 当你在实验室工作时，遵守安全规定是极其重要的。再来看到形容词 risky， 表示有危险的或是有风险的。例如 Investing all your money in stocks is risky. 把你所有的钱投资在股票上是有风险的。或是 Traveling through the mountains would be too risky, so we chose a route around them. 直接穿过山太危险，所以我们选择一条绕过山的路线。
Okay, so the first part of our article introduces this topic to us. Traveling abroad is both exciting and educational. Okay, so of course, if you travel to other countries, it can be very exciting. You see lots of new things, you have wonderful experiences, but also you can learn things at the same time, so it's educational. However, for Taiwanese vacationers used to safe cities with little crime, foreign adventures can also present unexpectedly risky situations. Okay, so don't be too spoiled here in Taiwan. It's relatively safe here in Taiwan. We don't have a lot of crime. You won't get ripped off or pickpocketed if you're walking down the streets of Taiwan, at least not very often. I've never been pickpocketed here. But we're talking about vacationers. Those are people who are on vacation. In the UK, they have holidays. I'm going on holiday, but North Americans say I'm on vacation. So if you're on vacation, if you're having a trip somewhere, you are a vacationer. And yes, indeed, you might encounter some risky situations if you travel abroad. If something's risky, it's kind of dangerous. Okay, if you go out after a certain time at night, you might get in trouble. It could be kind of risky.
All right, so how to avoid those risky or potentially dangerous situations. So with this in mind, here are some tips for a safe, enjoyable trip. When we say with this in mind, we're sort of saying with this is our basic idea, sort of remembering this or thinking about this or framing everything, looking at everything in this way from a way of travel safety. We're going to give you some really good tips to hopefully have a safe, enjoyable trip because, when you go away on holiday or vacation, you don't want to run into a bunch of trouble and spend hours in a police station filling out forms. You want to have fun. So let's find the safest and easiest way to have fun and try to avoid any of these more distressing or risky tricky situations. Starting with part 1 or item 1, don't look like a tourist. Let's read all about how to do that. Don't look like a tourist. Tourists are often targets for people with malicious intentions. So make yourself less conspicuous by dressing like local people, and don't wear anything that screams, "I have money." Keep your devices hidden when not using them, and walk confidently, as if you know where you're going. Make emergency plans. Inform someone of your travel plans. Share hotel details and daily itineraries so that at least one person will know where you ought to be. Look up the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in your destination country and save its number and local emergency numbers. Hopefully, you'll never need this information, but having it will save time if you get yourself into trouble.
第二部分介绍形容词 malicious， 意思是恶毒的或是恶意的。例如 Ben spread malicious rumors about his coworker to damage Amy's reputation. Ben 散播关于同事的恶毒谣言，企图破坏 Amy 的名声。也可以说 The spam email installed a malicious program on the network. 那封垃圾电子邮件在该网路中植入了一个恶意程式。再来看到名词 intention， 表示意图或是打算。可以说 Eric's intention was to help, but his efforts caused confusion instead. Eric 的本意是想帮忙，但他的努力反而引起了混乱。又或者说 My intention is to create a business that will change the way people shop. 我的目的是创立一家能够改变人们购物方式的企业。下一个看到形容词 conspicuous， 它的意思是显眼的或是引人注目的。例如 Lenny looked conspicuous because he wore bright clothes. Lenny 看起来很招摇，因为他穿亮色的衣服。再看一个例子A good spy needs to avoid being conspicuous. 一名优秀的间谍必须避免太显眼。继续看到名词 itinerary， 表示旅行计划或是预定行程。例如 The travel itinerary includes stops in 3 different countries. 这趟旅程的行程包含3个不同国家的停留点。也可以说 It's a good idea to carry a copy of your itinerary with you when traveling abroad. 出国旅游多带一份旅行计划在身上是个好主意。继续介绍单字 economic， 这个形容词指的是经济上的。举例来说 The government introduced new economic policies to help businesses. 政府推出了新的经济政策来帮助企业。或是 The trade agreement started a period of economic growth for the country. 这项贸易协定为该国开启了一段经济成长期。最后看到Destination 这个名词表示目的地或是终点，可以说 After walking for 40 minutes, we finally reached our destination. 走了40分钟后，我们终于抵达目的地。最后一个例子 Rome is a popular tourist destination that is well known for its history and culture. 罗马是以历史和文化闻名的热门旅游目的地。
Okay, so here's our first tip for staying safe abroad. Don't look like a tourist, okay? So you don't want to attract too much attention from thieves and people like that. Tourists are often targets for people with malicious intentions. So yes, indeed, if you're malicious, that means you have some bad intentions. You're going to do something bad. 不怀好意, as you say in Chinese, you might have malicious intentions. Your intention, of course, is what you plan to do. And yes, indeed, we've got people hanging out in tourist areas looking for tourists because, hey, they want to steal stuff from them. They want to pickpocket them or scam them or whatever. Yeah, they don't mean well.
Absolutely, and those are the people who will definitely ruin your vacation by committing a crime with you as the victim. So how do you do it? You make yourself, it says, so make yourself less conspicuous by dressing like local people and don't wear anything that screams, I have money. Yeah, good tips right there. Make yourself less conspicuous by dressing like local people. Look at the local style of clothing, the way local people dress, and kind of dress a little bit more like them. You won't be so conspicuous. If something is conspicuous, it really, really stands stands out. So if you go to a fancy party and everyone was, all the women are in beautiful gowns and the men are in tuxedos, and someone is there wearing a baseball cap and dirty jeans, they would really stick out in that wedding party and that social event because they're dressed very, very differently. If someone's walking down the street dressed as a circus clown with face makeup and a big rainbow wig and funny shoes, they would definitely be conspicuous. They would definitely stand out. So don't be like that. I think this is one where I often see American tourists being told don't wear t-shirts with college names on them and things like that. People in Europe won't wear something that says University of Alabama on it or something. You'll definitely be conspicuous. You'll definitely look like an American tourist in that kind of situation. So just try to see how the local people dress and try to model your style a little bit like that. Don't have a camera hanging around your neck all the time. Don't be walking around with a phone in your hand pointing at things like you're looking at your GPS. Try to blend in other words. And also don't wear anything that screams, I have money. Big fancy watches and jewelry and things like that. That could definitely make you a target for pickpockets and thieves and robbers, not just on holiday, but in many big cities as well. So keep all that fancy stuff at home. If you're going out for dinner, that's nice. Take a taxi to the dinner, wear your nice jewelry, but don't just kind of walk around all the time with it on you.
That's right. Don't advertise the fact that you've got money. Of course, you have a high temptation to show off that Rolex watch or whatever, but don't do that. Wear your Casio instead, and you won't look so rich here. Keep your devices hidden when not using them, and walk confidently as if you know where you're going. Okay, so yes, indeed, keep those devices hidden. The devices, of course, could be your smartphones, your digital cameras, or whatever. Keep them hidden inside your shirt or inside a small bag or something when you're not using them so people can't see that you're actually tourists. And then walk confidently as if you know where you're going. Try to look like you're a local. Walk straight down that sidewalk as if you live in the place. And as a result, you probably won't be targeted by pickpockets and people like that. And our next tip is all about making emergency plans. Okay, if there is an emergency, you need to know what to do.
So what should you do in this situation? It says inform someone of your travel plan. Someone back home who could be contacted if suddenly something happens, if there's an earthquake where you are, a terrorist attack or something awful happens. Keep someone back home informed of where you are, where you'll be at different times if you're traveling from place to place. So if something happens in that city, your friend can say, oh, they left that city 2 days ago, they should be fine, that type of thing. So do keep people informed. Not only friends, but you can do it a bit more officially. It says share hotel details and daily itineraries so that at least one person will know where you ought to be. Yeah, this would be the idea. A family member, a friend who's staying at home, obviously not with you on the trip, give them a pretty detailed schedule or an itinerary, which is a schedule of activities, when they will happen, what will happen, and where things will happen. Often when we have meetings or something, we might have an itinerary talking about the different topics that will be discussed in the meeting, and travel itineraries are very common. Monday we'll be here, then at midday we go to there, we take a bus to this other place, dinner is at this location, that kind of thing. A travel schedule with times and places. So leave that at home so at least one person will know where you ought to be or where you should be at that time. So again, if something happens, they can look at it and see if you were around that area or if you had actually been quite distant from that location whenever something bad happens.
And of course, you're from Taiwan here, so if you're traveling overseas, you need to look up the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in your destination country and save its number and local emergency numbers. Okay, so you might need to contact them if something bad happens to you, if you lose your passport, for example. So you need to look up this particular organization, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office. Economic here just has to do with the economy, Jingji, as you say in Chinese. And you're going to look up that Economic and Cultural Office in the country you're going to. The destination, of course, is where you're going. Oftentimes, they'll ask you what your final destination is. For me, for example, if I fly to the U.S., I might be flying to Milwaukee. That's my final destination, even though I'm changing planes in San Francisco and in Denver. But my final destination would be Milwaukee. city. And yes, we've got your destination country. Yeah, look up that office, whether it's in Paris or London or Madrid or Tokyo or wherever. Have that phone number ready in case you need to call these people.
As it says, hopefully you'll never need this information, but having it will save time if you get yourself into trouble. Think of it sort of like buying travel insurance. Yes, 99% of the time you won't need that insurance, you won't need that information, but that 1% of the time when you do, it's too late to get it after something's happened, right? You can't buy insurance after the accident. You can't tell people where you are after the disaster when they're frantically trying to find you. So do it before you leave, because when it comes time to really need it, you're going to really want to have planned ahead. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is doing your research. Good tip for lots of different things. Let's see how it applies to having a safe and happy trip. Do your research. Learn about your destination ahead of your trip. Check what's happening there and read updated travel guidance. Some places appear safe, but have unexpected dangers, so make sure you know the score before you visit.
Okay, our next tip is to do some research, look for some information before you go, and learn about your destination ahead of your trip. Before you head to the airport and get on your plane, do some homework first. Look for some information about your destination. Like if you're going to Egypt, for example, look for some information and look for articles that tell you things to do there, things to avoid, areas to avoid, things like that so you don't get robbed or whatever. So yeah, do planning ahead here. Learn about your destination before your trip. Check what's happening there and read updated travel guidance. Okay, so of course you got websites that'll tell you all about traveling to certain places, but then of course there are websites where people actually offer their own personal information. So read these accounts and educate yourself on the dangers of the particular country you're going to. Who knows? It might be pretty safe. I didn't have to do this when I went to Japan because Japan is generally a safe country, but you never know. There might be bad people anywhere. So yeah, do your research first and you'll be safe if you do that.
That's absolutely a very good tip. It says some places appear safe but have unexpected dangers. So make sure you know the score before you visit. So to know the score is to kind of know the situation, know what's going on, know what's happening right now, because that's really an excellent point. Some places appear safe. You know, you haven't heard of trouble in that South American or African or Eastern European country recently, but you haven't really been paying attention to local politics and local social issues. I know that some countries around election times, they can have more violence as different political parties start to rally and protest each other. So things like that. So just because it's not a famously dangerous place doesn't mean it's a completely safe place. And yeah, unfortunately with the news these days, you know, there are certain hot spots or trouble spots in the world that don't make the news quite as much as others. So don't just assume anything. I think that's a really good tip. Don't assume anything. Check yourself, because you don't want to arrive there and find out you've arrived in the middle of a period of political upheaval that is suddenly going to make your seemingly or relaxing vacation you'd wanted and planned, it's going to turn it into a stressful experience. So do your own research.
Hopefully everything will be safe for you when you travel this holiday season, but right now we're going to stop our lesson and listen to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。出国旅游既刺激又具有教育意义，但是也可能带来意想不到的危险状况。而课文的第一部分最后一句就写到 With this in mind, here are some tips for a safe, enjoyable trip. 有鉴于此，这里提供一些让旅程安全又愉快的建议。那它用到 with something in mind 就是表达有鉴于考虑到某事物。这个片语是用来表达在做某事时考虑到点点点，以什么为目标或理由。举例来说 The building was designed with sustainability in mind. 这栋建筑物的设计考虑到了永续性。那顺便补充一个用法是 have in mind 是表达想着打算，常常用 have something in mind 来表达想着心里盘算着某事物。假设你在买东西的时候觉得老板推荐的东西太贵了，那这时候老板可能会说 What price range do you have in mind? 那你心中的价格范围是多少呢？也就是在问说你预算多少。好，那么课文第二部分它提供的旅游建议是别看起来像观光客。那有一句说 Walk confidently as if you know where you're going. 走路时充满自信，像是知道自己要去哪里一样。那这边要介绍的是 as if 或者是 as though， 它可以引导副词子句来表达仿佛、似乎或是好像怎么样。那么后面接的子句可以用直说法或者是假设法。我们在描述的情况它可能是事实或是可能发生的情况时，这个子句要用直说法，也就是呢子句里面的时态是照正常变化，时态跟你描述的时间一致。就像课文里面用的 as if you know where you're going， 这是在描述事实或可能为真的情况，所以子句它用到了直说法。我们也造个例句 The little girl looks as if she's about to cry. 那个小女孩看起来快哭了。那这有可能是事实，不用假设语气。好，那如果是在描述跟事实相反或不太可能发生的情况时，这个子句要用假设法。那我们在表达跟现在事实相反时 as if 或者是 as though 后面接的子句会是用主词加上过去式动词或者是 were。 那么在表达跟过去事实相反的情况时 as if 或者是 as though 后面的子句是用主词加 had 加上 pp。 举例来说 Matt speaks as if he were an expert. Matt 说话的样子仿佛他是个专家，但事实上他不是专家，所以我们这边子句用了假设法， be 动词用到 were。 好，再造一个例句是 He looked as though he had just seen a ghost. 他看起来像是刚刚见到鬼一样。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Essential. It's essential that you arrive on time for the exam tomorrow. Risky. Starting a business without a detailed plan seems like a risky move right now. Intention. As she approached the frightened cat, Cindy tried to make it clear that she had no bad intentions. Conspicuous. Kathy's bright red hair made her conspicuous in the crowd. Economic. Tourism has played a key role in the island's economic growth in recent years. Destination. The bad weather caused us to arrive at our destination more than an hour late.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.